You're listening to The Endless Party with your hosts,
Megan Elijah Armstrong.
Hello everybody and welcome back to The Endless Party.
Hello.
We're so glad you're here with us. So we actually wanted to talk a little bit about, how would we phrase it?
I think it's just a concept called the self-fulfilling
The
prophecy.
self-fulfilling prophecy.
And I think you could explain it pretty
So
good.
there's a couple different things with this self-fulfilling prophecy. So one aspect is we are shaped by other people's thinking. So what that means exactly is when people script us a certain way, and we've actually talked about this in a previous podcast. So when people tell us that we are certain things, and there's a few stories throughout this podcast that we share, that people scripted us a certain way, and because of that, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak. Now, the other aspect of a self-fulfilling prophecy is us, what we speak. And so, for example, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, he spoke it or she spoke it into existence. And what that means is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if I say I'm going to do something and I go out and do it, I just had a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, that's a really good explanation.
Does that make sense?
I was really impressed. That made
Hopefully that makes sense.
That's better than I can explain it. So as well as talking about this concept, I'm actually really excited because today I get to pull some of my learning for my degree in marriage and family therapy and family science
Smart.
into this podcast.
Super smart.
So I'm super excited to just kind of incorporate a couple details I've learned from my degree as well as, real life experiences to explain how you can implement, this concept of self-fulfilling your own prophecies, like for the better, for good.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's kind of cool about this is when it comes to the self-fulfilling prophecy, it can be a positive thing or a negative thing. It just depends on how you speak to yourself as well as what you allow others to say to you and how you allow others to impact you.
So I kind of think the first thing I want to talk about, the first part of the podcast, is I want it to be how others speak things into existence
How
for
others
them.
kind of
How you
you.
allow others to script you. And I think mainly this happens critically in our development. I think mostly this happens when we're developing as children.
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to share a story. So when I was in 7th grade, I had just moved to a new city and I was in a new school. And I was at a pretty critical age in my life. I was 13. So I was starting to be a teenager. I was starting to grow and mature. And this was kind of the time in school when I feel like girls are really self-conscious. Middle school, I feel like is just kind of rough
for a lot of people.
Girls, but
boys,
anyway.
I think it's like their time to shine.
Kind of, I think. They're like...
So I love middle school.
He loved middle school. I hated
did not.
middle school. It was horrible. So anyways, I had just moved to a new city, and I think feeling self-conscious, I started to sign my papers, Amazing Meg, Wonderful Meg, Miracle Meg, and I would turn my papers in, and I didn't really show anybody else. I just, as I was
more for yourself.
Pretty much, as I was putting my name on the paper and turning it into the teacher, I did that. And so I started submitting my assignments like this, and well, one day I got all my assignments back, and there were big black X's through the portions
First
of
of all,
my
what a tool of a teacher.
through the portions of the paper that were, that I was using to affirm myself.
Right, so miracle, big red X.
Big black X. And as well as that, this teacher personally went to my mom and told her what I was doing and told her that it needed to be put to an end. And I remember feeling so stupid. I was like, oh my word, I must be just...
I must not be amazing.
I must not be these
miracle.
things,
Yeah.
And like I said, I wasn't doing it in a way that was very flashy. I wasn't showing the class. I mean, it also kind of shows and also going back into human development, child development, I was, in the phase where you are 13, you are more egotistical, thinking more about yourself. But that really wasn't my...
Well, it was more so
I was just very self-conscious.
Yourself.
Right, so instead of this teacher coming to me and being like, you are amazing and this is awesome, and blah, 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 and helping me work through this, instead I had
Right.
that big black X through those words describing me, and I was left to feel so dumb. But what happened because of this experience, instead of taking it as something that, maybe I'm not this, I think what happened is there was this fire within me to prove that I was someone special. And I ended up,
You used it as like fuel.
I used it as fuel to kind of burn the
She ended up
fire
as
inside.
valedictorian, so that's what's up.
Okay, and what really happened is I set out to prove to myself that I was someone special and set out to develop hobbies and to discover who I really was.
Mhm.
However, this experience, what could have happened is I could have believed what that teacher told me and then lived the rest of my life, which sounds pretty dramatic, but lived the rest of my life believing that I was a nobody. And it sounds dramatic, but I think that happens to a lot of us
Well, it's
because all of
crazy.
us get beaten down at times, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first, like, what a garbage human.
So-
No, it's true. Like, what type of person would do that? You can do it in a better way. And on the flip side, I've shared this story before, but I had the opposite experience
Right.
in third grade. I was scripted as the kid who was just, quite frankly, dumb. And I was in all the special help classes and all, everything. And then finally it was my third grade teacher that was like, someone's opinion of you doesn't have to become your reality. And then I entered the poetry contest and I won the poetry contest, and then I thought, wow, I'm actually a pretty good student. And from then on, I started to improve, and then by 5th grade I got straight A's all through high school. From
Right.
5th grade through high school. And it's like, that's the difference that one person can make, right? Is like, I actually believed not all the naysayers, but I finally believed the one person that told me I could do it. And luckily for you, you didn't believe the one person that told you you couldn't be amazing.
Right. And I think something too, so you had that experience with the teacher, Miss Powell, right?
Mhm.
And it was so great. So then you took that experience and you're like, you know what, I'm going to be an author and a speaker.
Yeah.
And then what happened when you decided to do that? People again told you.
Oh yeah, that's
what I
actually
wanted to
interesting
add.
too. So as soon as I was like, actually, I changed my major in college because I was on track to be a dentist. Horrible idea.
That wasn't right for him.
It wasn't it for me. And then one day I just kind of had this epiphany after prayer and all the things, and I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. I want to be an author and a speaker. I told people, mind you, these people are the closest people to me, and the first thing they said out of their mouth was, you suck at English.
You're like,
First of all, I think I'm pretty good at English because all of you can understand me right now, but
That's
still,
what they said.
that was the first thing they said.
And
to me.
here's what's fascinating too about that. So then you take that and you're like, no, you're almost done with your
Forget
first,
you.
and you're almost done with your first book. And
Yeah.
all those naysayers, like, have they written a book? Have
No.
they? No.
And that's
so
what's
it's
crazy
so
about it
interesting.
too, is so many people will speak about subjects as if they are an expert in the matter, when
Right.
in reality they aren't. So they'll tell you, for example, in my case, it's like, you suck at English, you can't be an author, you can't be a speaker, and this is coming from people who have done nothing.
Right.
And so for your teacher to tell you that you're not amazing or you're not a miracle,
Right.
and it's like, who are you to tell me that?
Right. And what was interesting is I wasn't ever saying like I am the greatest miracle and better than everybody
No.
in this class. That's not how it was going. You know.
You were saying you are one of the miracles.
Pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
and I was 13, so like as a teacher, I feel like you could have.
Should
Actually,
have
I think
handled
I
that
was
a lot
12.
better, to be honest.
I was 12. So, anyways, you could have. You can cut. You
could
can cut
easily
a
come
12-year-old
up to
some
them
slack.
and say like, "Hey,
You're
you
amazing.
are all of these things." I'm gonna be honest with you though, it makes it a little hard for me because the first thing I look for is your name. So if you will just
Or-
not put that, that'd be super
Or
helpful.
just
Or just
let-
put it on the back.
Or just
let
let
it
the kid
slide.
write it. Like, why?
Yeah.
What's the harm in that kid believing in themselves? Because
Like I
that's
said,
that
garbage.
was really what I was conveying. Is I just so desperately wanted to believe in myself.
Absolutely.
Anyways,
Who doesn't?
So, right. So I think as adults, as educators, as people who are are given this responsibility to influence people, I just encourage all of us to recognize the way in which you are scripting and impacting the young minds around you.
Mhm.
And as a mom, I think something I've had to correct and work through is, you know, sometimes one baby is a little bit fussy.
Yeah.
And it's real,
twins.
and sometimes it's really hard not to script that baby as like the mad baby.
Angry baby.
And I think, and even Elijah and I were kind of starting to do it a little bit, and then we pulled each other aside and we were like, wait.
Say this.
This isn't how this is gonna go. I was like, this baby is not going to be known, you know, for being mad. And so what we switched to doing is we started telling this baby, you're happy, you're nice, you're this, you're that, and this baby has actually become happy, nice.
Awesome.
So it's interesting. I'm like, is it even the person's, like, is it even that young person's fault that they're like doing that action, or is it on you, you know, the way your child is behaving? I don't really know.
No,
it's
absolutely.
just fascinating.
It's actually kind of cool because in Meg's family, we've actually seen the positive side
yes,
effects
we've
of
seen
this
a really positive.
in her little brother.
Yes.
And what's been cool is because her youngest brother, not youngest brother, but second
one of my
to
younger
youngest
brothers, yeah.
He is deemed as like the little man of the house.
He's responsible.
He knows
he's
where everything
trustworthy,
is. He's always
crafty,
willing to help.
He's intelligent.
Yeah, and because of that,
He is
all of those things.
He's incredible.
It's pretty cool because everybody turns to him. When we babysat him last summer, there was a problem with their pool.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, my dad was a landscaper, so I know all the things about pipe, right? And I was like, Eddie, I need pipe glue. And he's like, what's pipe glue?
And then you explained
And I was like,
it.
well, pipe glue is for pipes, you know, and it's this color. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know exactly where that is. And he takes me down underneath the house to this random bucket that's jumbled full of all the things, and he pulls out the pipe glue, right? And that's just a small example, but because he's been scripted in a positive light, he is all those things that Meg mentioned. He's intelligent, he's crafty, he knows where everything is, he's reliable, responsible. And it's pretty cool to see the impact that they can have on somebody.
Right. It's pretty cool that what my parents have helped him become.
Yeah.
Because of all of those positive affirmations. Mm-hmm. And so, like with our kids, you know, things we always try to tell them is you persevere, you go the extra mile, you're kind, you're brave, you're smart.
You're sympathetic, you're understanding, you're right. Like you try to script them in a way
and
that's
they're
like,
4 months old. They have no idea what we're saying. But I think they do. And I think it's a really good habit because, you know, even sometimes they're having a really hard time going to sleep and we'll be like, baby, I know this is hard, but like you're strong and you can do this and you can go to sleep.
I'm gonna be honest.
And they do.
It's pretty cool. And like it's cool because I mean just to bring up like lullabies and nursery rhymes, and it's like, why are they the way that they are? Why are these lullabies set up the way that they are? Right? So for example, Rainbow Connections, or Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or
When You Wish Upon a Star.
When You Wish Upon a Star. All of these things are like dream big. You
Make
can
your
do it.
dreams come
Believe in
true.
yourself. Like fly. You know, and it's pretty awesome because your entire childhood, what kid doesn't believe all those things?
Yes.
They believe that they can accomplish anything, and then unfortunately you run into teachers like Meg had,
Sure.
or just people in general that tell you that you're not amazing, you're not a miracle, and unfortunately we believe that stuff.
I think too, I mean, just take a second to imagine what would happen if your parent or the people who influenced you as a child only told you that you could.
Right.
Only told you that if you put in the work, your dreams would happen. Only told you that you worked hard, that you were smart, that you were intelligent, that you were talented. What do you think would happen to all the people in this world?
Well,
what would they start to believe? That.
We would see exponential growth in all aspects of society because people would start inherently believing in themselves, and because of that, they would start accomplishing the goals and dreams that they have in their minds that only they can bring into fruition.
Right. So like if you are in a position of influence for good.
Yeah.
And script those people around you with positive traits, and if they are someone who is willing to be influenced, you can watch them rise up.
Yeah.
Super cool. So it's just really inspiring. I think
It's pretty awesome.
so. The second part of this podcast is now talking about what you yourself can do.
Yeah.
So Elijah and I are very much of the mindset of proactivity. So life is our responsibility, and the outcome of our lives are based on our choices, not the outside influences.
Right.
So although I think sometimes children do get a free pass of being like, this is how they were scripted. However, if you're now an adult or now someone who can, make choices for yourself and have like the development within your side, you're like within the maturity and development to start to take on responsibility. You're an independent person, you're now not dependent.
Yeah.
I think that's when you can start to create these self-fulfilling prophecies. And here's something that's interesting too. I don't think you have to be an adult to start doing this. I mean, I started doing it even when I, 7th grade.
Oh yeah.
When this teacher,
Oh yeah, you can start now. Right?
You can start now, right?
Yeah.
So, self-fulfilling prophecies. So, super cool. So, Elijah and I are under this, have this belief that you can speak things into fruition. And something that I learned that's super cool within the realms of marriage and family therapy and family science, it's this word, it's called transformational figure. Mm-hmm. And what's super cool about it is within our family history and within just socially, our families normally follow these patterns and habits.
Traditions, patterns, whatever, yeah.
And sometimes they're very negative. For example, this one is just one that comes to mind. Normally, women kind of take the back seat, and are kind of told, you can't do this, you can't do that. Maybe you're not an equal with your husband, I'm talking about kind of like that life.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
No, absolutely.
But as a mother, you have this opportunity to be this transformational figure within your family's history and to say, actually, no, I'm an equal with your father, and I can be strong and intelligent and smart. And then you can pass all of those that positive thinking onto your daughters. Mm-hmm. I think a second example is kind of mothers, daughters, and body image, which is another concept I talked about in an earlier podcast. But, maybe you have this long family history of women having horrible, self-talk about their body image. But as a mom, you can change that for your own daughters. Mm-hmm. And you can say, no, I'm going to talk really positively about myself and have positive body image. And then what happens is your daughters will start to have this positive body image. Last example, you can have a whole family line that maybe doesn't believe in Christ or doesn't have a belief in something. You can be that transformational figure to flip it. And you can say, no, I'm going to develop...
Generations will be influenced because of it.
Yes, I can develop this faith in Christ, pass it on to my children, and my children can teach their children.
Right.
And this whole thing reminds me of this quote that Jordan Peterson actually expressed in his book, 12 Rules to Life. And he's kind of talking about transformational figures and the influence you can have on, your posterity and people around you. So Jordan Peterson explains, I had a client who did not have good parents. Her mother died when she was very young. Her grandmother, who raised her, was a hard-ridden, bitter, and over-concerned with appearances. She mistreated her granddaughter, punishing her for her virtues, creativity, sensitivity, intelligence. Unable to resist acting out her resentment for an admittedly hard life on her granddaughter. She had a better relationship with her father, but he was an addict who died badly while she cared for him. My client had a son. She perpetuated none of this with him. He grew up truthful and independent and hardworking and smart. Instead of widening the tear in the cultural fabric she inherited and transmitting it, she sewed it up. She rejected the sins of her forefathers. Such things can be done. And I'm like, isn't that so powerful?
Oh yeah. What's interesting is I even think about just this example. So her grandmother had a really hard life, and she took her hard life out on her granddaughter, correct? Mm-hmm. Whereas her granddaughter also had a really hard life, and instead she chose to use that hardship and change.
That's so cool.
It's pretty incredible because that, at the end of the day, that's what we're really trying to focus on in this podcast episode, is the fact that you're going to deal with some hardships. You're going to have the people in your life that tell you you're not amazing, that tell you you're not a miracle. And you can choose to believe them and live that hard life.
And then transmit that on other people.
And then do that same thing that they did to you to others. Or you can choose to change and recognize that someone's opinion of you doesn't have to become your reality. And then you can be that transformational figure.
So cool. So, people who experience evil may certainly desire to perpetuate it, to pay it forward, but it is also possible to learn good by experiencing evil. A bullied boy can mimic his tormentors, but he can also learn from his own abuse that it is wrong to push people around and make their lives miserable. Someone tormented by her mother can learn from her terrible experiences how important it is to be a good parent. Many, perhaps even most of the adults who abuse children were abused themselves as children. However, the majority of people who are abused as children do not abuse their own children. This is a well-established fact which can be demonstrated simply arithmetically in this way. If one parent abused 3 children and each of those children had 3 children, and so on, then there would be 3 abusers the first generation, 9 the second, 27 the third, 81 the fourth, and so on exponentially. After 20 generations, more than 10 billion would have suffered childhood abuse, more people than currently inhabit the planet. But instead, abuse disappears across generations. People constrain its spread. That's a testament to the genuine dominance of good over evil in the human heart. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's so powerful because it just kind of expresses that within our hearts there is this like power to do good. Mm-hmm. And there is an equal power to do evil, but I would argue that the human heart, is more likely to err on the side of good. I think people are more often inherently good than bad.
Oh, I agree. There's actually a story that I'll share with you, with everybody real quick. And it's a story of this king. And he was kidnapped at, I think it was around 12 years old. And what happened was the kidnappers said, we want to destroy this king, but we can't do it in a physical manner. We're going to do it in a spiritual and emotional manner. And so they gave him every 12-year-old's fantasy. They filled him with pornography, they filled him with just junk food and candy and just everything that a 12-year-old boy could ever want. He had no restrictions. And this king didn't divulge at all. He didn't indulge in any of the substances, any of the pornography, any of the just horrible, horrible filth that they filled him with. And finally, after 3 or 4 years of this, they were like, why have you not given in? And he goes, because no matter what you put my direction, I know where I come from. I know who I am. I'm a king. And a king would not indulge in any of this. And it's pretty cool because that story can go hand in hand with each of us. Even if we are kidnapped and belittled and just run through the ringer, we can remain those kings and queens and realize that we are incredible. We are amazing, no matter what comes our way.
It's so cool. And I think, too, it's why? People are going to ask, why are we special? What makes us so incredible? And for Elijah and I, what is it? It's that belief that we are children of God.
Yes.
And because of that, we have this...
How could you not be special?
You're God's child. You come from deity.
Yes.
Come
on.
So what's the best way to create a self-fulfilling prophecy? I think it's easier to self-fulfill once you understand and have this identity that, you are a child of God. And I wanted to kind of come full circle. So, I had that teacher who was the worst, and I ended up actually having a coach who was pretty much just the same. But what has gotten me through these situations and this hardship and, these instances where people have wronged me is that belief I had that, well, I come from, a God who loves me, a Father who is all-powerful, all-knowing, and because of that, that gives me worth, and that gives me something special, and it gives me the power to overcome all of this and choose to shape my own destiny. And I'm like, that's beautiful.
No, it is beautiful. I mean, it's pretty interesting, and that's true of each and every one of you who is listening or watching this podcast. It's that understanding, whether you believe in God or not, you're still His child. That's just the reality that we kind of want to share with you today, is the fact that you are a child of deity and you are a child of God. So regardless of what you go through in this life, that is enough. That should make you feel special. That should make you believe in yourself, because the one being in the universe that is all powerful, believes in you.
Boom. Need we say more?
Need we say more? You've been listening to The Endless Party. Please feel free to join us over at our website, theendlessparty.com, for more of our content. Also, we would love to hear from you. Leave some comments and let us know what you're interested in us talking about.
Seriously, like, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, whatever it is the platform says to do, so that we can keep partying together.